After all was said and done,
This is an article entitled CLR James. You never know when it's going to explode. Originally published in Living Marxism magazine in April 1989. The article was written by John Fitzpatrick, who visited CLR James to ask him about a newly published biography and about his life and times. The article is read by Andrew Hurst and intercut with the original recording of CLR James from the interview. CLR James sadly died later that year. This programme was produced by WORLDwrite as part of its CLR James Every Cook Can Govern project, which is being launched at the Oval in London on Saturday the 23rd of November 2013. This event will feature a debate on CLR James and the canon. Full details and tickets are available from www.wegottickets.com. Here is the article.
For once, the publisher's blurb is no exaggeration. CLR James is one of the 20th century's most remarkable individuals. Nobody could argue with that. Born in 1901, James was a leading literary figure in his native Trinidad well before he came to Britain. From Nelson, Lancashire, he became cricket correspondent for the Manchester Guardian and other papers. In 1938, he published The Black Jacobins, Toussaint Louverture and the San Domingo Revolution, a landmark study of slave revolt. He has written extensively on politics, dialectics, literature and sport. Beyond a Boundary, his remarkable study of what cricket meant to him, and should mean to us, came out in 1963. He lectured for years in the USA and in Africa, and acted as eminence grise to such leaders of Pan-Africanism as Ghana's Kwame Nkrumah. He was also a relentless political activist, a leading figure in British Trotskyism in the 30s, in the Marxist group and in the Independent Labour Party, and in the 40s a leading figure in and out of the American Trotskyist organisation, the Socialist Workers' Party. In the 60s he entered the fray in Trinidad with his Workers' and Farmers' Party. CLR James, not far from 90, is now ensconced in a second-floor garret in Brixton. Perched above the offices of Race Today, with a view down Railton Road, he sits in an armchair flanked by shelves of books, a cricket ball is wedged amongst them. He gets the first question in.
Are you Irish? I am, yes. My mother and father are Irish. I'm born here. Do I look Irish?
No, but I suspected you might have some whiskey in your pocket, have you?
I'm afraid I haven't.
He is frail, but he talked for over an hour before tiring, lucid and serious but with a spry wit. He was quick to rebuke any hint of a lazy or patronising question, and careful in all his replies. What did he think of the biography?
I thought it was a very good book, a hard book to write, biography. I haven't killed anybody, but he made it quite interesting. A successful piece of work, but not an easy job.
The political climate in which the book has been published is very different from the times that it describes, when James rubbed shoulders with Leon Trotsky and balked at the latter's advice to enter the Labour Party in the 30s. How would he compare political work in Britain then and now?
But in those days, to do independent revolutionary work was quite an adventure, and we went at it, not knowing what would result. The whole thing was wide open, and you went in an open sea, so to speak, and you worked hard and came through, or you sank. It isn't so. The organizations are pretty much set, and either you join this, or you join that, or you don't join that. But the positions are clear. But in those days you had to fight for the position, and it was more of an adventure. But in a way, you had to fight harder, but the field was more wide open.
He had been in many organisations, and often in none. Did he still believe in the importance of a revolutionary party?
You must have an organisation, but I don't believe that means you have to join something that's there. Maybe you have to fight against the organisation in order to get clear a policy. And may I say something about an organisation today? In the old days, an organisation meant a certain political, philosophical orientation. Today, it's that in theory, but in reality, it is a structure. and you have to join the structure. That's the difference between the two. That's as I see it. In the old days, the political line and the philosophical basis of it was dominant, not today.
So he hadn't moved away from Leninism?
I have always felt that I was a Leninist. Oh, I believe that Lenin was the greatest political leader, theoretician and organizer that we have known.
James took great pains to distinguish Leninism from Trotskyism.
But for me, Trotskyism and Leninism are not the same. Lenin had a philosophical view of the revolution. He was not on the surface, but he was fundamentally in opposition to bourgeois society. And unless you are aware that every step that he took had that in mind, you will go wrong with Lenin. Trotsky began to be for the party, and he was quoting Lenin for the party. But in reality, his conception of the party didn't have the basis that Lenin's conception had. Lenin had not only a historical basis, but a philosophical conception. Trotsky, in the end, was swept away by his followers into having, I don't say a superficial, but a conception of the party that was not fundamentally connected with the state of the society. Lenin never lost sight of the party and its relation to the fundamental movement of the rank and file of the people. For him, that was a philosophical conception. For him, party meant the basis of the party was the people.
How would Lenin have dealt with Margaret Thatcher?
I don't think that is a very right question. He would have denounced Margaret Thatcher and exposed her origins, where she came from, and what he was doing. He wouldn't have minded whatever kind of success that she might have. But for him, she would have been an enemy of the revolution. I remember one thing with Lenin. There was a time when he was alone and 110 people were against him. And he said, I don't care, 1 against 110, I am with the one. No, Lenin and Margaret Thatcher are opposite poles. Lenin, I think, would have done this. He would have said, she has won 3 times. Once something has happened, that is an accident. The second time, it maybe is a coincidence. But the third time, an orientation. And Lenin would have said, let me see why. And he wasn't going to rush into an agitation to put up somebody against her. He would have gone down and say, bring all her work to me. The first thing she ever wrote, or what she said, he would have analyzed them all. And being Lenin, he would come out with this. She represents this, and this today is stronger than it was in years past. And she sticks to that, and that is why she wins.
James is a mine of rare first-hand reflections, not just on international revolutionaries, but on the people who made the history of the British left. Men like Red Clydeside MP James Maxson of the ILP.
Maxson was an orator who had gained an orator. He had a fine voice, oratorical manner, and he said all the things that everybody agreed with. Maxson would get up and say that we are against these enemies. They support king and country. They support the army. But we are with the people and the ordinary soldier, the rank. All these abstractions, Maxson he was a marvelous man for making the abstraction revolutionary.
What of the issues for the left in Britain today, like the race question?
I don't see the race question in Britain as a race question in the vast colonial areas. In Britain, the dominant question is this: are you for the Labour Party or are you for the revolution? And the race question has to fit itself into that. That is the question in Britain. When black people or the people in the colonial world say the race question, it means to them a lot more. But in Britain, there are no people in Britain for whom race is a fundamental matter. Only the coloured people in Britain really feel race. But an Englishman in Manchester, Salisbury or in Dorset vote in favour of the black struggles and the race question. To him that is somewhat abstract.
What then of the colonial world and the problems which beset African states like Nkrumah's Ghana after independence?
I want to make it clear. In many a formerly undeveloped country, the organization of a party is a tremendous step forward. They leave the tribe, they leave the religious structure, and they make a political structure. But if that political structure is used, becomes a representation of the politics of the advanced country, it's a hell of a mess. Is that clear?
Yes.
And it happens in many colonial territories, because the Communist Party, the Stalinists, picked up these things, went to the colonial territories, said the party is what makes politics, and the party is our party.
Yes.
It is becoming more clear that Stalinism is merely a projection of the need of certain sections of the movement for political power. When we began to say that, people didn't pay too much attention, but today they are listening without a doubt. I wouldn't say that the back of Stalinism is broken, but there is a movement against them. Not a few intellectuals, not people writing political art, but in the movement, people, they don't rush to them as the hope of the future as they used to do 20 years ago. Not today. Isn't that clear? Yes. If you will allow me to say so, and this is particularly in the former colonial territories, they understand Stalinism owing to the fact that James and other colonial writers not only spoke of independence for the colonies, but pointed out the evils of Stalinism. All over Africa, the political movements that are developing, the native political movements, are for the most part anti-Stalinism. And they are anti-Stalinism because those of us who fought for the independence were anti-Stalinism. Oh yes.
One other reason that they're anti-Stalinist is, I think, the experience in the post-war period of Soviet Union foreign policy.
Yes, without a doubt, but they have learned their leaders to understand it, that it is not a mistake, but organic to the whole Stalinist policy. It was a tremendous struggle, to make people understand that the Soviet Union and the Communist Party that it influenced was the enemy of the revolutionary movement. That was a tremendous job, but that is done. And today, the theoretical foundations of anti-Sovietism have been laid and made public.
Do you think that's the most important legacy of the Trotskyist tradition?
I think that is the one that is most important.
The battle which James had with Stalinism was clearly the ongoing political fight of his life. He feels that it was a job well done. I asked about his fiction. Does he have any favourite pieces now?
I began expecting to write fiction and to write literature and social in traditional way. But I came to Britain, joined the movement, and became a political analyst and writer. I left fiction behind, but fiction as such didn't hold the effect that it had when I started. So my ideas and my fiction in the early days didn't have the political background and orientation which it had when I came to London.
You wrote later The Renegades and the Mariners book. That was a more, it seems to me, a more politically informed piece of literary criticism.
Yes, but that was after I had been soaked in the movement. Yes, I don't think anything should be made of my fiction. I hadn't really become soaked in the Marxist movement. I was still on the surface.
On the surface today, I put it to him finally, There is much pessimism about the prospects for revolution.
But my friend, I want to tell you two things which it has been a fundamental part of my outlook. A statement by Marx early on. The revolution comes like a thief in the night. You never can tell what will explode, how far it will go. But Marx put forward a guide. He says that movement failed, but it reached certain heights before it collapsed. When the next one comes, it will begin where the last one collapsed. It wouldn't begin all over again. You know that it will begin at the height where the last one collapsed. And the Marxist theory is a scientific intellectual theory such as the world has never seen before, and properly used, properly and thought of, but with always with the feeling that history brings things new that you didn't see before, but with the basic Marxist guide, you can manage. We are not worried. We have a basic guide and we are ready for events that haven't taken place. So on the whole, we can view the future with a certain confidence. We have a method that is aware of the past but open to the future. Okay, I'm a bit tired now.
Yes.
Thank you for listening. For details of WORLDwrite's CLR James project, email world.write@btconnect.com.